Hey everybody, I'm Madalyn Sklar. I am the host of the Social ROI chat, and boy, did we have an amazing one today with the awesome Greg Savage. Hey Greg, how are you doing?
Madeline, how are you? Very nice to be on your show.
Oh my gosh, you all were amazing over there. I really enjoyed. It was so meta. You guys were on Periscope and got to watch you guys while running the chat.
That's how
Pretty.
we roll in Australia. We like to multitask on a social level.
I love it. I love it. I think it's incredible, and what a great team there, all of you together. It was amazing to
Well, it's a
watch
good
that.
team, Josephine and myself. I'm not really sure what Kevin was doing here because he just had a pina colada and he kept on talking about the beach.
I
So I'm
kept
not
hearing
sure.
about the beach. I was
Yeah.
wondering what was up with that. Well, we're so happy that you're here with us, especially there in person. The big question was how you got to 50,000 Twitter followers. We all know that's not easy to have happen. Can you share a little bit about like what's your journey been?
Yeah, sure. So the history of it was that it was a good 8 years ago, and I was running a recruitment company, and we were kind of a startup. It was a management buyout, so we had some scale, but we had no money, and we wanted to build our brand globally, and so we were grappling with the whole concept of social. And I started blogging, and I went on Twitter. We did a lot of other things too. And it was from those early days that we made all the mistakes and learned the lessons. And I would say, well, first of all, it's taken 8 years. I think it took 7.5 years to get to 50,000 followers. And I think the main lessons were, and this isn't going to surprise anyone, but you've got to tweet a great deal. You need to understand that Twitter is a stream. It's not an inbox. It's not as though people are going to go back and look at your tweets that you tweeted this morning, unless they're tagged. So 5 times a day, at least, if you're serious about building a brand on Twitter, more like 10. And of course, it's great content. And the content that I used my blog in a sort of symbiotic relationship with Twitter. And so I was tweeting a lot of content, which was my content, and it was driving people to my assets, my online assets, so to speak. But also, just pithy observations, being generous, I think, is a fundamental platform to being successful on social. By that I mean sharing information, but also connecting people, answering questions, helping newbies along, being a bit patient with people, and contributing to other people's success on social and in their business is important. And consistency. I think I've been on Twitter sort of literally, and there may have been some holiday days where I wasn't, but literally every day. And it's that combination of consistency, content, and engagement. You have to, in the beginning, I would sort of thank every RT, and I can't do that now, but I certainly respond to any question, or I must have missed a few, I'm sure, but that's my goal. And it's quite interesting. I travel the world a bit and I give speeches around the place, and people come up to me and say, I tweeted you 6 months ago and I was amazed you replied. Thank you very much. So I think you cannot underestimate the importance of engagement for people to, authenticity is what people seek, I think, on social. There's so little of it. So being authentic, and by responding, you're showing your authenticity. It's the beginning. Makes a huge difference. So those a bit of a long answer to your question, Madalyn. I'm sorry, but that's probably
It's
the best
great.
way to. Yeah.
I love it. That's a great answer. And you really touched on all the important things. I mean, consistency is incredibly important. And I think when people are not getting the number of followers they think they should be getting and not getting the engagement they're getting, if they just go look at the consistency, that's probably the answer right there for them. Like, just be on Twitter more.
Yeah, look, that's true. And certainly in my specific industry, and I'm sure this is relevant to everybody, which is with the recruitment and staffing industry, a lot of people are aware of the importance in building a online brand, but they think a tweet a day or a couple of tweets a week, it's a bit brutal, but I say to people, you better get off Twitter than dabble on Twitter
Right.
if you're going to be serious. It is hard. It's, the best analogy is trying to get fit at the gym. You can't go to the gym twice a month and think it's going to do it, nor can you go 10 times in one day and think job done.
Right.
Nor can you go for 3 months and think I'm now fit, because a month later you won't be. It's forever, literally, if you're going to be serious about it, and it has to be consistent. And I can't overemphasize the importance of the content. It's not just volume. You've got to be you've got to work out who your audience is. First of all, are they on Twitter? And it's not for everybody. If you're trying to reach, I don't know, accountants, certainly in this country, probably not Twitter. But if you're trying to reach digital marketers or HR professionals, Twitter's good. And then you focus the content that's of interest to them. It's not the content that's of interest to you necessarily. Obviously, there'll be an overlap. But endless tweeting about your personal interests or your political aspirations or your view on any other issue that's not relevant to the matter at hand is probably a luxury you can't afford, because you alienate more people than you win, and you really need to just drive content that the audience is interested in. That's what I've learned.
Right. And there are different types of content. So what do you recommend when you talk about content? What are different types of content that people should be putting out once they know who's listening, who they're reaching out to, what type of content?
Well, I think if you are serious about a social brand, you will have a blog, and it might be your own blog, or it might be that you're blogging on your corporate blog. And so links to your proprietary content is a starting point. I think links to third-party content is fine. So I often link tweets to other people's content. That's part of the generosity. It's part of sharing interesting information. But you've got to remember that drives people to somebody else's website, right? So,
right.
Excuse me. That's fine. And a certain amount of that is perfect. But you really want to drive them to your website and if it's a business building exercise. So proprietary content, but also I think what's very important on Twitter is observations, updates, commentary about what's going on. And I get my biggest engagement, not so much from a link to a blog, which might go well, but to an insight. Something as simple as some companies are missing out on the best talent because they are dragging out the recruitment process, and top talent won't wait. There's a tweet that's quite insightful and will spark quite a lot of debate, but it's also sharing something that my audience needs to know. So I just made that up, by the way,
Sure.
But that kind of thing. So you've got your proprietary content, which is articles and blogs. You've got your insights, and then third-party, other people sharing other people's material, links to interesting stuff is good. So there's 3 types of content, and then of course it's the engagement. Responding, sharing, replying. With people sometimes say, how engaged is my 50,000 followers? I don't know, but what I do know is I get 20 questions or more a week about the industry via Twitter, at least, probably more. I try to answer them all. It's become a bit of a burden, I'll be honest with you, but I've created this, and you can't now stop responding, because that's where the authenticity comes in. That's where you build up loyalty.
That's awesome. I've been on this mission with Twitter video. I think video is something that a lot of people are not utilizing. What's your take on that with, of course, imagery, photos, important, but just all types of visuals. So I've just been really big with video. What's your take on that?
Well, I've started on my blog, where I blog every second week. I have done for 7 years. I've now added on the alternate week a 1-minute video, which I call rather cleverly, forget what I call it. I'll tell you now. 60 Savage Seconds. They're 1-minute videos.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's great.
Videos, and on some topic. And now that's via my blog, but of course I tweet them, and I'm finding that they're getting a lot of traction and a lot of interest, because you don't have to be a social media expert to work out that there is a generation coming through who like to consume their information on video. They like it to be short and punchy. I don't think it's to replace everything else, but it clearly has a role, and YouTube generation loves it, and so do other people. I've been told that people are using these 1-minute videos as a little sort of with coffee in the morning for the team to get around and watch the 1-minute video. have a 5-minute conversation, and that's the training sort of energizer for the day. Perfect for me to have my content used that way.
That's
and I don't
wonderful.
think people would sit around and read my blog for the morning's activity, so it's a different way to do things.
Absolutely. I love it. That's so great. Now, on the chat, switching gears a little bit. So on the chat, when we got to auto DMs, people just went a little crazy, like really stressing how much they dislike it. And I saw that was your response as well. How do you think auto DMs, all this spam, how do you think that's all come about? Because I just don't understand, like, who told everybody it was okay to do that? It's so crazy. I don't know what to do about it. Like, how do we get people to stop doing that?
How do you get people to stop drink driving and having unprotected sex? I mean, there are a lot of stupid people in the world. Josephine's in shock and horror now because she's sitting opposite me, and I've been really well behaved until now. Now she's got red and she's fuming. However, my views do not represent ManageFlitter or anyone else except me. But seriously, if you look at people's behavior on social, you don't have to look at auto DMs to see self-sabotage and ridiculous behavior. And I'm not just talking about, people who flame other people and, haters, etc. People who are meant to be sensible, trying to build a brand, doing ridiculous things such as tearing down competitors with vile language, or having a profile picture of them drinking a bottle of wine out of a big flagon on the beach. That's not your profile picture for LinkedIn or for Twitter, for that matter. If you're trying to build a brand, it might be fine on Facebook, and I'm not going to judge you on that regard, although you will be judged by potential employers on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else. So people don't do the sensible thing, and I think people think, as far as it comes to DMs, that it's just a shortcut and a way to engage and automate. I think automating on social is very smart when you use it cleverly. For example, scheduling tweets. I do that. I'm tweeting now, I'm sure. But I don't only schedule tweets. I will respond in real time and I'll tweet in real time. But I will schedule tweets because I'm busy doing other things. Social media isn't my job, and Twitter's certainly not my job. But I'm going to Melbourne today. I'll be busy, but there'll be 10 or 15 tweets over the next 24 hours. And I think that's a good use of automation. DMs are irritating, and they're completely the antithesis of what Twitter is about, because Twitter should be about authenticity, engagement, and humanity. And an auto DM, it's ironic when you get an auto DM that says, hey, I'm really, really grateful you're following me. Please, will you go and read my blog? That's a complete spam, and it completely contradicts itself, because you're not grateful you're followed, not on a human level. And so I think, I don't know why Twitter allowed it. We had a quick chat on the Periscope. I don't know if you were watching it amongst all the other things going on, but we bounced around some ideas that maybe Twitter should limit the amount of auto DMs you can send out. My recommendation, I can't see a good reason to send out a DM, auto DM, I should say. I cannot see one at all. So don't do it would be my strong advice. I usually unfollow people who do that, or at the very, very least, it starts our relationship off on a very bad footing.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that ManageFlitter. I heard Kevin when we were doing Periscope talking about that when this got brought up, that and Joe talking about that ManageFlitter does not do the auto DM. Makes me love them even more. So thank you for sharing that. One last thing. The last question, we were talking about Twitter being a long game and how much time you recommend investing. And I saw that you had tweeted you do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. I think that's, and then you just talked about scheduling. I pretty much do the same thing. I schedule the same way you're talking about. I get on for different periods of time throughout the day. So what is your recommendation? Somebody that's watching this that is aspiring to get to where you're at on Twitter, how should they be putting in the time? Sure.
It's a great question, and I have to first admit that I'm one of those sorts of people who, when they decide they're going to try and do something, in the early days, I put in far more time than I'm about to recommend. One of the things I did was I followed a lot of people who were influential or target people of mine. I think people struggle to get their follower count growing. You can do it very slowly and organically by putting out great content. And even the greatest content, if you don't have an audience, is like putting on a musical in an empty theater. It might be the best musical of all time, but who knows, you know? So you really have to have an audience. And it gets to it, obviously, and it gets to a tipping point once you get your volume up. So I recommend in the early days something like this. First of all, get your bio right. Get your profile picture good. Yes. Get a link in there back to your blog or your website or your LinkedIn page. Get all that right before you do anything. I see people following me who've still got an egg as their picture and nothing. Why would I follow them back? I don't know who they are. So get that right. Then populate your Twitter feed with a few relevant types of tweets. And then I would say you should start to follow people that you would like to follow you back. And you can follow quite aggressively. By that, I mean 100, 150 a day. I think Twitter's got a limit of 5,000 you can follow before they want you to have 5,000 people following you back. 5,000 is a lot of people you can follow in your niche. But then you've got to tweet 5 times a day. So I would say, in answer to your question, as a maintenance, it's 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. I keep my tweet deck open. And if I'm on, in the airport or, those gaps, those little windows that you have, I will check in to Twitter, maybe tweet something, certainly try and answer some questions or thank a few people. And then once a month I'll schedule, excuse me, I do have a daughter who's in digital marketing, and for the exchange of money, she will schedule them for me. I write all the stuff, but she will schedule 6 months ahead. It's quite a long job because it's also on LinkedIn and other places. So that's a big job. But then I'd say 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. And what I used to do, and again, this is where the obsession comes in, at night I would follow 150, 200 people. I'd go to a competitor of mine who was big on Twitter, if there was one, and I'd follow their following selectively, appropriate people that I'd want to follow me back. And I found about a third followed me back, and that grows your followers, and they're targeted quite consistently. And then through content, it starts to gain a momentum where people RT you and start to engage. And when that starts to happen, you'll find followers come to you organically. But I do think it's a good idea to follow people in your niche as a starting point. Aggressively.
I agree. And I just have to throw in that ManageFlitter is a wonderful tool for this. It really, really is. It makes it so that you can do it so much easier, less time by using the tool. This has been amazing, Greg. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and answering all these questions. You were so great on the Twitter chat and just as wonderful on the live stream. How can everybody get in touch with you?
Well, a good place to start would be my blog, which is gregsavage.com.au. You'll see that's my webpage. You'll see the blog, The Savage Truth, on there, and you can subscribe. There's also a contact form. Follow on Twitter, Greg_Savage. All that stuff's on the blog, gregsavage.com.au. Lots of information, lots of banter, videos, and all about recruitment, leadership, and social. That's what I talk about.
Awesome. I'm going to post this in Facebook so everybody can check that out. We really appreciate your time today. You've been wonderful. And for everybody watching, just big shout out to Greg. This was just amazing. And we'll be back next week. We're going to have Kim Garst. We're really looking forward to it. Until next time, we'll see ya out on Twitter. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.